Patches Mountains, our Sunday morning cover story. The man was Ansel Adams, one of the most famous and most honored photographers in the history of art. His black and white prints, very many of them of the mountain wilderness of the American West, are immensely popular and valuable. In his life's work, he was monumental. Now his fame has become monumental. In the wilderness of Yosemite National Park in California, there is a newly named peak. It is more than 12,000 feet high. It is called Mount Ansel Adams. The dedication of the mountain was cause for celebration by those who celebrate the environment. Old-time fighters for the western land shared beans and barbecue and memories of Ansel Adams, who died a year and a half ago. Robert Redford was there. And Senator Alan Cranston. Wallace Stegner, the author, and Ansel Adams' old friend, was there to make the major speech. The Secretary of the Interior was an official guest.
Today that they're going to take and drop me off Puppy Dome tomorrow.
And Mrs. Virginia Adams was a delighted guest. She met Ansel Adams in this park and married him here. He was her husband for 56 years. All the Adams family, 3 generations of them, joined the crowd in the sunny alpine meadow. Wallace Stegner, winner of the Pulitzer Prize as a novelist, is famous as a teacher of writers. On this August day, he spoke as an understanding friend.
One of the themes that's come up is, if Ansel were here today, it's inevitable that one should think of that because we all wish he were. I think he would be amused and gratified to be given a present of a mountain if he were here. I think he probably would read us a lecture on how to behave in the world and how to take care of the environment and who is not doing it right and who is doing it right. I won't try to do that. I just want to talk about Ansel. In his later years, when the news media discovered him as a, quote, character, unquote, they found an adjective for him whenever he attacked Secretary Watt or Mr. Reagan or the Park Service or some corporation that was inattentive to its environmental impact. The word was feisty. It's not a word I like. It strikes me as being a demeaning kind of label. It made him sound like a public scold, some tennis-shoed eccentric who always wanted to fight and was never satisfied with anything. But let me tell you, that was not scolding that the press heard in Ansel's letters and in his public utterances. That was a great heart beating. That was a great artist speaking his mind on something that mattered more to him than fame or money or anything, I suppose, in the world except his family and his art. That subject that he aired his mind on so frequently was, of course, the health and beauty and integrity of the earth and the responsibility we have for preserving them.
This place, Yosemite National Park, is one of the great centers of that effort. Ansel Adams first came here on a family picnic in 1916. He returned often for more than 60 years to hike, to explore, to live, and to preserve Yosemite's glory in peerless photographs. Now, more than ever, this is his place. When he made this picture in 1943, he called it Peaks and Meadow, Lyell Fork of the Merced River, Yosemite National Park. Now the peak is Mount Ansel Adams. This, too, is Ansel Adams' place now, the stately National Gallery of Art in Washington. Only once before, for an exhibit of the work of Alfred Stieglitz, Adams' friend and champion, has there been a photographic exhibition here. The classic images include giant enlargements made by the master and prints in what he called the museum set, 75 images he felt would define his life as a photographer. There were to be 100 museum sets, all sold on the promise that each set would remain unbroken and would finally reside in a museum or other such institution. Only 6 sets were completed before Ansel Adams died. This one is owned by Pacific Telesis Group. It is on loan to the National Gallery. And in this year of the dedication of Mount Ansel Adams and the National Gallery exhibition, there is finally the autobiography. Like its creator, the book is candid and funny and evocative, artistic and complete. There is no signed Ansel Adams photograph that was printed by anyone but him. He did his work, all of it. And looking at his pictures and reading his words reveals a typically brilliant self-portrait. What follows is from the autobiography of Ansel Adams. I had visualized for many years an image of Yosemite Valley from Inspiration Point and exposed many sheets of film in an effort to achieve that visualization. Finally, in 1944, a sudden heavy rainstorm hit, which at midday changed to wet snow. I drove to my chosen site and quickly set up my 8x10 camera to capture the marvelous vista spread before me. The clouds were moving rapidly, and I waited until the valley was revealed under a mixture of snow and clouds with a silver light gilding Bridal Veil Fall, realizing the photograph, Clearing Winter Storm.
One of his most beautiful pictures.
After sleeping on the camera platform atop my car, I woke before dawn, made some coffee, stoked my stomach with beans reheated from last night's supper. I then perched my camera and tripod across my shoulders and plodded heavily through the shifting sand dune, attempting to find just the right light upon just the right dune. The sun floated above the margins of the funeral range, promising a very hot day. Just then, almost magically, I saw an image become substance. The light of sunrise traced a perfect line down a dune that alternatively glowed with light and receded with shadow. The result is Sand Dunes, Sunrise, Death Valley National Monument. At about 1:30 a.m., as the sun rose, the clouds lifted and the mountain glowed an incredible shade of pink. Laid out in front of Mount McKinley, Wonder Lake was pearlescent against the dark, embracing arms of the shoreline. I made what I visualized as an inevitable image. The scale of this great mountain is hard to believe. The camera and I were 30 miles from McKinley's base. Stieglitz once said, "I have the desire to photograph. I go out with my camera. I come across something that excites me emotionally, spiritually, aesthetically, I see the photograph in my mind's eye and I compose and expose the negative. I give you the print as the equivalent of what I saw and felt. I think that his explanation is the most valid statement extant on the genesis of a creative photograph. I saw several images in my mind and made 5 variations. The best of the resultant photographs, Frozen Lake and Cliffs, is still very satisfying to me. It has been termed abstract, but I do not think any photograph can be really abstract. I prefer the term extract, for I cannot change the optical realities, but only manage them in relation to themselves and the format.
I would suggest to you that a place is not fully a place until it has had its poet. Yosemite and the Sierra Nevada have had 2 great poets, Muir and Adams. In consequence, I think these mountains are better understood, better known, held worthier of respect and protection than they would be if those 2 had never looked on them with reverence and been delighted by spring dogwood blossoms and exhilarated by glacier pavements and dazed by half-mile cliffs and glorified by snow peaks blooming like roses in the dawn.
Well, Muir wasn't so bad, but when Muir ran out of adjectives, he used the word godlike. It was a very easy way out.
4 years ago, Ansel Adams chatted simply about monumental concepts with Ed Bradley in an interview for Sunday Morning.
There must be a religious sensation. I think every artist has to have a very definite religious, basic concept of the world. But why I should have to tie myself down to some myths from a couple of tribes in the Mideast desert is, you know, it's beyond me.
Being human, with human limitations, I think we're sometimes ill at ease in our contacts with grand nature. Awe is an inarticulate and rather humbling emotion. The seer is likely to clutter up what he sees with some of his own feedback, spirits, gods, and so on. Nature's intricacy and nature's grandeur breed religions as swamps breed mosquitoes. Animists are always finding spirits in every waterfall. Transcendentalists interpret every natural object as a shadow of the oversoul, some echo from upstairs. God-finding in nature was not Ansel's style. Nevertheless, hundreds of his ideas, of his images rather, are pregnant with awe. A felt response to something bigger than ourselves. Every experience, he said, ought to be a form of exploration. His certainly were. In searching for means to express his own response to natural things, he taught thousands how to see and feel.
So I don't try to, it's just beyond discussion. I mean, people say to me, well, what did you mean when you did that picture? What did you have in mind? I said, it's in the picture. No, I mean, I want you to tell me, what were you thinking about? I said, I can't, it's in the picture. And it's like, oh. Who was a great Negro musician that said, man, if you have to ask, what is it, you ain't never gonna know. That's what Everett Weston's great. People would say, now, why did you do this, Mr. Weston, or what is this? And he'd always quote Louis Armstrong, I think. Mm-hmm. Man, if you have to ask, what is it, you ain't never gonna know. And that's very true. If it didn't in the photograph, then I failed.
Writing in the Sierra Club Bulletin in 1932, reporting on his early impressions of the Sierra, Ansel remarked on mountains and how they affected him. No matter how sophisticated you are, he says, a large granite mountain cannot be denied. It speaks in silence to the very core of your being. I hope and believe and know that his personal mountain will speak in those terms to many people, and for a long time to come, as his great mountain images have done and will do. Mount Ansel Adams, which we can't see from here, is more of a mountain, I believe, because it was touched by his life and his art, and because it is dignified by his name.